Welcome to another episode of AutoMundial, the weekly car news and review show, where this week we're taking a look at a pair of glorious V8 Grand Tourers, the Aston Martin DB11 and the Bentley Continental GT.
And we have the latest crossover SUV from Mercedes, the new GLA. And sticking with the SUV theme, Vauxhall has built a hybrid Grandland X with 300 horsepower.
Plus, we get our first look at the all-new Seat Leon.
All that is still to come. First, though, the news.
Earlier this year, we reported on Aston Martin's financial difficulties and the importance of the new DBX SUV. Now though, the much-loved British brand has received some much-needed investment. Canadian billionaire and Formula One team boss Lawrence Stroll will become the brand's new chairman, following his £182 million investment. A further £318 million is also expected from major stakeholders. Stroll will take a 20% stake in the company, but CEO Andy Palmer will remain in charge as the company oversees the launch of the DBX and a forthcoming Vantage Roadster. What's more, Aston is set to return to the top level of motorsport as, rather excitingly, Stroll's F1 team, Racing Point, is set to be rebranded as Aston Martin from the start of the 2021 season. For now though, Aston will retain its sponsorship deal with the Red Bull team as their technical partnership continues development of the new Valkyrie hypercar.
We've covered a number of Opels and Vauxhalls over the past few months, and it's likely we'll see a number of others roll out of the factories in the next few months. This is thanks to the huge resources brought by its new owners, PSA, which is now the fourth biggest car company in the world thanks to various recent mergers and acquisitions. Regular viewers of our show will recall our review of the regular Grandland X late last year, where we pitted it against the Nissan Qashqai. On that occasion, the Opel was a decent buy, but not on top. But now, as the name suggests, the Grandland X Hybrid 4 features the EMP2 hybrid system that we've seen on other models from the PSA group. Could this help push it up the pecking order? Off the bat, the technical specs look promising, with a pair of electric motors, one at each axle, married up with a 1.6-litre turbocharged petrol motor. This is the beefiest model in the brand's current lineup, and by quite a way. The gearbox is an 8-speed automatic, and with the electric motors, the Opel is no slouch, with 0 to 62 miles per hour taking less than 6 seconds, thanks to a combined output of 296 bhp. The car can do 84 miles per hour on electric propulsion alone. According to Opel, the 13.2 kilowatt battery will provide 35 miles of all-electric running. Slightly disappointing though is the lack of DC charging, but despite this, the cells can be fully charged within 2 hours from a 7 kilowatt wall box. Unfortunately for consumers, Opel doesn't offer this as standard, and for anything more than the charger, you'll need to pay up. At least you can schedule charging through the smartphone app, which can potentially mean you can take advantage of off-peak electric vehicle rates. At launch, there will be 4 trim options available, starting at £36,000. This model includes an 8-inch colour infotainment system, dual-zone climate control and cruise control, amongst others. However, it is only available to business customers. The cheapest option to the private buyer is the SRI NAV model, but even this comes in at a mouth-watering £41,000. But not all hope is lost, because a version with just the front-mounted electric motor will become available in the spring and will be over £3,000 cheaper. Inside, Opel hasn't been able to improve the dark and dull interior, which was one of our criticisms of the petrol and diesel Grandland X. There's no fully digital instrument panel or heads-up display, and even the 8-inch display is a little soft. It might have a hybrid system and PSA backing, but this is certainly a pre-PSA model. So with the pricey Grandland X struggling to make the grade, which crossover is passing with full marks? Well, while Nissan and Mazda are yet to offer a hybrid solution for their models, Toyota does. Its RAV4 was a hit in the 90s, and the new RAV4 design has been a favourite worldwide, outselling everything in the SUV category in 2017. And now, on the turn of a new decade, the RAV4 enters its 5th generation with hybrid power only. Its styling might be different, but can it relight the spark of the original? Inside, aside from a few nice sections of rubber, the cabin is a bit lacklustre. The infotainment display, for instance, is horribly old-fashioned and clunky to use, as well as lacking support of Apple or Android systems. There is some good safety stuff like lane assist and cruise control, and even the base model is packed with features. It's also a chunk cheaper than the Opel, starting at £29,000. On the road is where the Toyota differs from its Japanese compatriots. You might think that it would be a Prius in a RAV4 skin, but with a 2.5-litre petrol engine, it's a lot punchier. The ride is smooth, and the switch between petrol and electric power is almost seamless, producing a refined ride. So on the road and for the pocket, the RAV4 is the better pick and easily in the top 3 for hybrid SUV.
When one is buying a luxury Grand Tourer, it's easy to believe that more is more. But with V8 versions of Bentley and Aston Martin's 12-cylinder Continent Crushers now on offer, do they represent a more sensible option? Or do their V12 and W12 counterparts still offer ultimate GT opulence? The Aston Martin DB11 has been with us for a while now, but if anything, it seems to be getting even better looking with age. Thanks to its timeless coupe design and sensibly sized front grille. It follows the same classic GT recipe as all of its DB forebears, with a big engine up front under a long bonnet, a luxurious 2+2 cabin behind that, and drive going to the rear wheels. It's pure Aston, and very unlikely to be mistaken for anything else. But it isn't just shaped to look good. It's covered in clever aerodynamic touches to funnel the air for maximum downforce, without the need for vulgar stick-on wings and splitters. It looks great from any angle, just as an Aston should. Inside, however, the styling isn't quite so convincing. The V-shaped dash design doesn't quite seem to fit in with the rest of the car's flowing looks, while the dated infotainment screen looks to have been carelessly plonked on top. That said, this is still an Aston, so while we may be a little pernickety about the aesthetics, this is still a wonderful place to find yourself in on a long journey. The materials are fantastic, with gorgeous leather and wood everywhere you look. There are some easily spottable Mercedes bits though, with the familiar touchpad and click wheel taking pride of place on the centre console. And that gives us a clue to what's under the bonnet. The entry-level DB11 swaps a 600 horsepower 5.2-litre V12 for a Mercedes AMG V8. On paper, the turbocharged Mercedes power plant is totally outgunned by the flagship model. Power is down to 503 brake horsepower, while top speed is down from 200 to 187 miles per hour. It's hardly a slouch though. 0 to 62 miles per hour is dealt with in just 4 seconds, only a fraction slower than the heavier V12. And it's the V8's weight that helps it stand apart. With 4 fewer cylinders sitting under the bonnet, the DB11 V8 is nimbler and more of a driver's car than the V12 Cruiser. That said, however, the V8 will still settle into a comfortable cruise like a proper GT. And then we have this, the new Bentley Continental GT V8. Every bit as imposing as the W12 model, with only the extra tailpipes and some badges marking it apart from its big brother. It's a familiar VW Group engine that we've seen in everything from the Porsche Panamera to the Lamborghini Urus. Like the DB11, the V8 Continental misses out on the big numbers of its 12-cylinder counterpart. Power is down from 626 to 542 brake horsepower, while 0 to 62 just pips the Aston at 3.9 seconds. Naturally, with a smaller engine comes a lower curb weight, with the V8 Conti tipping the scales at 2,165 kilograms. It's certainly no featherweight then, but it is 79 kilograms lighter than the flagship model. Unlike the Aston, the Bentley sends its immense power to all four wheels. Grip and therefore year-round usability mean this could easily be used as an everyday car, especially with the V8's improved fuel economy of almost 24 miles per gallon. But even in this budget version, the big Bentley is all about luxury and refinement. The interior is in a league of its own. The sheer quality has to be seen to be believed, with only the finest materials on display. At first glance, it may look a little glitzy, but the more you look, the more details you spot. There's wood and knurled aluminium everywhere, while the seats feel like they've been lifted from a first-class plane cabin. The Aston's interior is good, but the Bentley's is truly special. For day-to-day use then, these cars are arguably better choices than their bigger capacity siblings. They're cheaper, more economical, and still immensely fast. But if money is no object, there's still something magical about 12 cylinders.
After the break, Mercedes' new crossover and the all-new Seat Leon. Coming up, the all-new Mercedes GLA. But first,
the Volkswagen Golf has long been the top dog of the family hatchback class, setting the bar in just about every area. It's always been sensible without being dull, and premium without being expensive. The new Mark 8 looks set to continue the Golf traditions. But what if you want all the Golf goodness in a cheaper, more stylish package? Step forward the all-new Seat Leon, Spain's rakish answer to the demure Volkswagen Golf. The old model was a huge success for the brand, selling over 1 million units despite its bold design. As a result, Seat hasn't mucked around with the styling too much. It's a clear evolution of the old car, but thoroughly modernised, with a full-width rear light bar, sharp front end, and a fancy new Leon script badge at the back. Despite its similarities to the old car, however, the new model is bigger, with 50mm added into the wheelbase, and an overall increase of 90mm. This growth, along with the more upright windscreen, aims to improve cabin space, something the old car was often criticised for. Rear legroom has been improved, and boot space remains the same on the hatchback version, while the Estates grows to 670 litres. As is becoming increasingly common these days, there sadly won't be a 3-door option. The interior has had a complete redesign and is now far more up-to-date and modern. There are fewer buttons and switches, with more of the controls being moved to the new infotainment screen. It's largely the same as the one you'll find in the new Mark 8 Golf, with top-spec cars getting an impressive 10-inch screen with crystal-clear graphics. Seat has also played around with the ambient lighting. Brightly coloured interior lights are nothing new, but until now, they have always been a bit of a gimmick. In the new Leon, though, they change colour depending on your driving mode. Red for sport, green for eco, etc, etc. What's more though, they can flash to get your attention if the car senses hazards or oncoming traffic in your blind spot. If you opt for an SE Dynamic model or above, you also get some very swanky digital dials behind the steering wheel, helping the whole car to feel much more upmarket than the outgoing Mark III. There are more Golf bits on show too, with a small panel on the lower dash with controls for the lights and heated windscreen. It all looks very Golfy then, but there are some nice Seat touches. The seats, for example, are available with sporty quilted trim and contrasting stitching, while the angular steering wheel with perforated leather sets it apart from the grown-up Volkswagen. But is the Golf still the obvious choice? On the face of it, it seems very similar to the cheaper Seat. It has pretty much the same engine lineup, the same MQB platform, and the same mild hybrid system. It's about the same size too, with about the same passenger and luggage space. Step inside though, and the interior feels just that little bit more special. The full-width horizontal air vent looks great, while the infotainment system is more of a feature. The VW badge also carries some weight these days, with the German brand enjoying a more premium image than Seat and Skoda. And it's Skoda that offers a third way into VW Group hatchback ownership. Cheaper than both the Seat and the VW, the Scala is a budget option with Golf build quality. It isn't quite as up-to-date as its VW Group stablemates, but it makes up for it with loads of interior space and bargain basement price tag. It lacks the style and modern tech of both the Leon and Golf though. The styling lacks charisma and the interior looks decidedly last gen, despite only going on sale last year. The Seat Leon though does seem to be a genuine cut-price Golf. It looks better than ever and comes with all the cutting-edge tech we've seen on the new Golf. Better yet, there's a hot Cupra version on the way too.
Against the odds, the original Mercedes GLA was a runaway success. Little more than a jacked-up A-Class, the high-driving position won it favour among buyers, even spawning a hardcore AMG version. Now though, we have a new one, and here it is. The 2020 GLA follows largely the same recipe as before. Take an A-Class, give it some bigger tyres and taller suspension, and voila, you got yourself a GLA. But look a bit closer and you realise a bit more has been done this time round. It has a much more SUV-like stance. Its whole body is taller than an A-Class with a much higher roofline. The wheelbase is shorter than the old cars too, making it look more squat and off-road ready. Speaking of which, Mercedes insists that the GLA is an off-road vehicle. Cars spec'd with four-wheel drive will all come with an off-road engineering package as standard. This splits the power 50-50 between the front and rear wheels, while also adjusting power delivery and the anti-lock brakes. It also gets a Land Rover-style hill descent system to aid with steep declines. Inside, there's plenty of extra headroom thanks to the taller roof, with space for 4 adults to travel comfortably. In fact, rear seat passengers now have 11 centimetres of extra legroom, while the boot space has also been increased, making this a genuinely more practical alternative to an A-Class rather than just a high-riding one. Elsewhere in the cabin though, its A-Class roots are obvious. The dashboard has been lifted straight from its hatchback cousin, with the same shiny materials and focal point turbine air vents. Engines are shared with the A-Class with a turbocharged 1.3 and a GLA 35 AMG available from launch. The AMG car is predictably silly, putting out 302 brake horsepower through all 4 wheels, lasting it from 0 to 62 miles per hour in a smidge over 5 seconds. The 1.3 is a bit more sensible, with 161 brake horsepower sufficing. But where the old GLA once seemed like an obvious choice for those wanting a premium crossover, it now has more competition than ever. This is the latest BMW X2, and we think it's fair to say that it's a bit of a looker. BMW has left the X1 to handle the traditional SUV styling, leaving the sportier-looking X2 to turn heads. Based on an X1, underneath the X2 shares its platform with the Mini Countryman, but don't let that put you off. It seems very un-BMW at first, only available with 4 cylinders and no rear-wheel drive option, but the Bavarian brand is moving away from its more traditional ideas of how a car should be built. There's a range of petrol and diesel engines, with a sporty M35i model topping the price list. However, the X2 misses out on a key crossover selling point, the high driving position. The X2 feels more like a hatchback, which is good for keen drivers, but not for those who want to look down on the traffic. So how about this? The Audi Q2. Like the Mercedes and BMW, it looks great with clean modern lines and sharp angles. It looks the part, no doubt, but the interior doesn't look quite as premium as its rivals. It's wonderfully well put together though, and it's practical with a spacious cabin despite its small size. The Audi is also available with a wide range of engines, with a fizzy little 1 litre kicking off the range. Performance junkies though will opt for the SQ2 with its 296 brake horsepower Golf R derived turbocharged 2 litre. Somehow though, both the Audi and BMW lack the Mercedes classy image. Perhaps the styling is trying too hard, while the Mercedes is a bit more elegant. Either way, expect to see GLAs everywhere when they hit the showrooms this spring.
Join us again next week on AutoMundial as we take a look at a new convertible SUV from Volkswagen.
And we check out a Japanese crossover to rival Audi and Mercedes.